We are continuing on with our series now, introducing you to the new principals of Addison School District 4. Earlier, we met with Francie Kapp from Indian Trail Junior High School, and now we're ready to welcome the newest member of the ASD4 principal team, and that is Christine Warren, who is the new principal of Army Trail School. So Christine, welcome to Addison, welcome to ACTV, your first appearance here.
Thank you.
We're glad to have you. So tell us a bit about where you came from, Christine, the prior community that you were in, and what your responsibilities were at that school district.
Sure. So most recently I was the Director of Curriculum in St. Charles School District 303. In that capacity, I served all content areas, pre-K 12 plus, and supporting curricular initiatives and curriculum development teams.
So that district is a K through 12? Then?
Correct.
Oh wow, so a little bigger than what you're walking into here in Addison.
Yes.
Okay. Was that a career goal for yourself to work in education? I mean, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I really wanted to be a trainer for the Denver Broncos. I was going to be an athletic trainer.
Yeah, my daughter works in that field.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
You know, both my parents were educators growing up, and so I was always around education. Athletics were a big part of my life, and so to be able to teach and coach and make a difference in a community was always very important to me, and something that I found to be very rewarding.
I have heard that especially in education, it follows generations. Was that the situation that you found yourself in then?
It was. I played sports in college, and I took math classes because it was something I excelled in because we missed a lot of school. And so I loved math. I loved wanting to make a difference. And I love sports, and so teaching really brought that all together for me. So both my mom was an elementary teacher, and my dad taught high school. He taught driver's ed, taught Cindy Crawford how to drive. That's his claim to fame.
Wow.
Yeah,
awesome.
in DeKalb.
How'd she do?
I think she did pretty well.
Must have, yeah, but she did.
Pretty well. Yeah.
Where did you go to school, university-wise?
Sure. So I'm originally from Colorado, and was recruited out to play softball at Illinois State University.
Okay, and that's where you got your degree and launched your career from there. Then.
I did. I met my husband when I was in college and stayed in Illinois.
Illinois State University, you said, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we have an intern working for us this summer from ISU
great.
also. Yeah, right. In St. Charles, as the Director of Curriculum, and you said you kind of touch all grade levels. So does that mean people come to you with ideas, or do you go to them with ideas? I'm talking about faculty now. How do you interact? How did you interact with the greater school district? Because that's a wide range of grade levels that you had to kind of keep your hand working on all of those things. Right. Were they coming to you? Were you coming to them? Or was it a collaborative effort?
I would say it's a collaborative effort. When we started curriculum development teams, teachers would apply similar to how they do it in Addison to be part of a committee, to serve on a committee that's involved in any curricular shifts, any instructional shifts in the development of assessments. So teachers typically applied to be part of that process.
Okay. And do they do that with their own background, skill sets? If I apply, I'm a teacher and I want to work on the science curriculum committee, is it because I'm a science teacher? Does
Correct.
It just fall in like that?
At the secondary level where they're more specialized, that is the case. Elementary obviously teaches all subject areas, and so any elementary teacher could be involved in any content area. And
then as the director then, do you supervise, kind of oversee everything that's going on? You need to know what's happening in all those committees, right?
Sure. So we actually, the Learning and Teaching Department, which I was a part of, there was always a Learning and Teaching Department member that facilitated all of those meetings. So we were very involved in the process. We would identify leaders within those teams and meet collaboratively and talk about the agenda and what was going to be covered and what was coming up next. So a true collaborative process.
Right. In St. Charles, and we'll talk a little bit about that before we start talking about things here in Addison, your new job, but as your job in St. Charles went, what were some of the things that you were able to kind of see all the way through to maybe your initiative, and you got this going and it worked really well, working with those various committees and the teachers that were involved in that? Anything that kind of stand out as to say, we got this groundbreaking new initiative and it went district-wide and everybody was just, thrilled with the idea that we had this now? Any particular element of that?
Yeah, and I think it really shaped kind of my passion for the elementary level. Most of my background has been in high school. My teaching was, when I was a teacher, I was teaching high school math. So in St. Charles, I had the opportunity to work really with the K-5 literacy component. And one of the areas that we were really struggling with was the lack of alignment with the science of reading and the resources and the curriculum that we had. So I was fortunate to be part of a team that brought in a systematic explicit phonics instruction program, K2, into the district, and we saw significant gains with our students in even just 1 year of implementation.
You said phonics,
correct.
Right? Mm-hmm. Now that's kind of a basic, that's sort of that reading, writing, arithmetic era. That's going back a ways now,
It is.
right?
It's, really focusing on the foundational skills of learning to read.
So it's not necessarily taking, here's a book, read it, and if you don't understand it or you can't work through the words, you're lost then. This is taking it down maybe a couple of steps to make sure the basics are there.
Absolutely. Right? Just as basic as letter sounds, the formation of letters, absolutely.
Right. Is that still in place now when you left St. Charles?
Yeah. It is.
Yeah, so it's working obviously.
They're doing very well.
Great.
Yeah.
So what brought you to Addison? Did Addison ASD4 find you, or did you find them, or was
I found ASD4.
You did. Well, very good.
One of my dreams was always to be a principal, and I was just sharing with one of your colleagues about my husband being in law enforcement, and one of the challenges is just the inconsistency of his schedule and work hours. And so as a mom, I wanted to make sure that I was always there for my own children.
Sure.
And so to really balance my career and my personal life, it just was not the right time to really pursue my dream of being a principal. And now that my kids are older, 16 and 19, and they're driving and they're independent, it allows me to really focus on a dream that I've always had, and that was to be a principal.
Right. Because you could be with the students closer than in the district office?
Yeah, I loved the district office and the work we did and the people that I worked with, but I miss the energy and the excitement in the classrooms and in the hallways, and that day-to-day energy that students, it just grounds you and reminds you why you're in education. And that's something that I'm very passionate about.
I've heard that from your peers who have come here to visit with us. The new principals were all at one time or another in an administrative level also. And they miss the classroom. They miss the kids. Yeah. And probably families too, I would imagine. Interaction that you would have with families.
Absolutely. It's a true partnership in community, in any school, in any suburb in the area.
Right. Have you had a chance to meet with any of the Army Trail people? I know we're talking here in early or mid-July, quite frankly, and your career with Addison is just getting underway now. So have you had the chance to meet with some of the team over at Army Trail?
Yes, I've met with lots of teams. I was fortunate that St. Charles was really flexible in my transition over to Addison, so I was able to engage in some professional learning in June. So I attended Viva by Literacy with several of our staff. We've also done some school improvement planning. We call it SIP in education. So I've had the opportunity to work with a Culture, Climate, and Voice Committee as well as an instructional leadership team and really talk about what our goals and what our desires are for the 23-24 school year.
In fact, they just were over here, the ASD4 people were here within the last week or so.
Yeah.
All dressed in Hawaiian attire.
Yes.
I had no idea what was going on. They were using a meeting room here at the Village Hall, and I saw Dr. Losi, and she said, we're doing a deep dive into data. And I'm like,
yes.
With a Hawaiian theme?
Yes,
what is up with this?
we did a full beach theme. Yeah, it was a lot of energy, excitement, but it also allowed us to have fun and relax, but really then focus in on the work that needed to be done.
Was that a help for you as a new employee, as a new administrator coming into a new community and a new district to be with the veterans, basically, of what they've worked on?
Absolutely, and it's really building on what Army Trail has done in the past and capitalizing on those strengths and what's worked and continuing on, and what are some areas that we need to look at to improve upon.
Right. Assessment process is always a big thing, especially I think at the younger grade level. I know it goes throughout, but there's a lot of assessment that needs to be done. Is it hard to balance in an elementary level and in what you were working on in St. Charles? Is it hard to balance the day-to-day classroom work, the things that kids need to know on a regular basis, and the assessment process, which needs to be done? And some people complain about, all they're doing is testing. They're just testing. Why aren't they teaching fundamentals? Why aren't they teaching basic life skills, things like that? Is it difficult to balance those two off during the course of a school year, for example?
Well, I haven't lived it quite yet in Addison, but I would say, any assessment that we administer gives us valuable information about a student. When we think about assessment, we have to not think of the way we remember probably when we went to school.
Little tests that you filled in, little
paper,
ovals
pencil,
and circles.
Right, the tests that we take, that there's other ways for students to demonstrate proficiency or evidence of learning. So I think it's really using that data. The power in that is, if we have that data, that we're using it to drive our instructional practices and to really meet the students' needs. And I'm not too familiar with all the assessments, that we do give in Addison. I know there was a committee working and looking at, what are the assessments that we have, what information does it provide? But like I said, all the data that we pull from a student adds value, whether it's at the classroom level or the state level. It tells us a story about each individual student. Yeah. But in terms of balancing, I don't know that I've lived it yet to quite share that, but yeah.
Because that information will follow the student along, and you've got them for several years before they move on to the junior high, and in that amount of time, I suppose you and then the faculty will want to know, where are our kids at from the day they walked into the building from the first time to the day they're getting ready to leave. It's only a certain amount of time, and it's valuable time that you have to work with them.
Right, and I believe acceleration for all. So it's not just our students who are struggling, it's also our top students that are performing, that we're moving them all along and they're all growing. And the way to do that is not isolating a group that's saying that this particular group needs more, but how do we take all of our students and move them to show that growth? Yeah,
because it used to be like that, right? You were separated more than maybe it is under today's educational standards. Yeah. When you have, let's talk about interaction with families now. Did you do a lot of that when you were in St. Charles and working in the curriculum department, or not so much?
Yeah, not as much. We had somebody who oversaw what we called Parent University, and so they would offer some workshops and classes for parents. But in the role of Director of Curriculum, I didn't have that.
Right.
I was fortunate to be an associate principal in Yorkville, where I oversaw the freshman academy, so I had more interaction with parents on a regular basis, whether they were coming in to talk about how their students are doing, whether it was through discipline, whether it was through an IEP meeting, whether it was, it kind of kept me kind of that holistic view of a student, which was a very rewarding time. So we would offer curriculum nights, or we would offer different opportunities and events at the school to invite families in the community in to see the talents of our students.
Because that's really important, to have a family. I mean, you see the students every day, but those students also belong to a family.
Absolutely.
And that influences them going forward.
Absolutely. The partnership between home and school is critical for student success.
Yeah. As we were talking with Ms. Kapp earlier in our previous interview, we talked about the various social service and nonprofit organizations that are in Addison, and they have a very strong presence. You probably have dealt with them in the St. Charles community also, but these are organizations and agencies that can offer really boots on the ground type services for families, and a lot of times families don't know about these services. So in your position as principal and your colleagues in the other school, the other buildings, they know about this type of thing, and they're going to be able to hopefully be a partner in referring families who have questions or there are real concerns to the various health and human service agencies. For example, there's a whole collaborative in Addison called Apple, and they work with the early learners. They're actually the birth to 5 range, and then from there they go off to your building, but they'll still be partner agencies with the entire ASD4 community.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. The more I think as a collective group within Addison, as I've met with staff, they all own a piece of the knowledge, right? And to really, when I think about being a school principal in a community, to me it's bigger than just Army Trail. It's Addison as a collective whole. And having those agencies and those services are phenomenal. Some of it is, if our parents are not coming to us and our families aren't coming to us, then we need to find a way to get to them.
Sure. Because it actually extends, I think, what your core mission is anyway.
Absolutely.
Not necessarily, it may not happen right within the school building itself, but it may happen on home visits, or it may happen during the summer, whatever it is. the library, right? I mean, you're literally right across the way here from the Addison Public
Park
Library.
District, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, an entire community approach. You mentioned your husband's in law enforcement. You want to talk a little bit about the family?
Yes, so my husband is a detective. I was sharing with one of your colleagues who we know people in common. And then I have a 19-year-old son who unfortunately was playing basketball in college and had a pretty significant injury and is home now and is exploring his options for next year. And then we'll have a junior in high school at St. Charles East.
All right. Now, has anyone taken a liking to mom's line of work, or are they looking at dad's line of work?
I wish, but no.
Okay.
No, neither are interested in education. My oldest right now is interested in physical therapy. I think through his injury and through his experiences in physical therapy, I think he's really found a liking that service of helping people and has really enjoyed that. And as I was sharing earlier, my youngest right now his desire is to be a canine officer. But that seems to change pretty regularly, so we'll see, where he lands.
Well, at least there's a plan there, or at least I have different ideas, and that's terrific.
Yeah.
That's great. Is it hard to find teachers, especially in the public education system? Is it still challenging to find teachers? There seemed to be a while ago, not too long ago, a call out, looking for people who want to give back and want to, shape the future and all that, be a teacher. Is that still a challenge, or is it more specialized? Teachers are hard to find than others. Where do you see yourself coming in with something like that?
Yeah,
challenge?
I would say, when I started my administrative career, probably about 2011, I would say that the pool of candidates was certainly a lot larger than it is now. I mean, there were times where we'd have a position and we could have 150 to 200 applicants. We certainly aren't seeing those numbers now, but we're also finding that people who are coming into education, I feel, are staying. I felt early on in my career there was kind of a jump around or a lot of turnover. I have not experienced that lately. But I would say the more specialized positions, when you get into dual language or when you get into special education, that some of those specialized areas, I would say that the pool has never been overly strong, but I would say that those certainly our specialized positions are a little bit more challenging.
Yeah. Or teachers who can teach more than one subject, for example.
Sure.
You could do a social studies and a math or something like that. If you get that's sort of a win then, right?
Yeah, at the elementary level they teach all, so it's a little bit different, but certainly at the secondary level, I know you met with Francie earlier, but that would be something that would be beneficial to have more content areas as part of their licensure. Certainly makes them an attractive candidate.
Yeah. How will you look at, and how will the staff, how will you encourage them when it comes to language barriers, for example, when maybe a language other than English is spoken in the home, and now we have young kids coming in, kindergarten, first grade, and so on, and they're going to need some extra help. They're going to need some extra support services. Is that part of the elementary school curriculum then at Army Trail, for example? Absolutely.
So obviously Spanish is a predominantly second language within the community, or first language for some. Yeah, we have EL support for students who speak languages that are other than Spanish and English. I would say one of the things that I've really enjoyed about Addison is how much the team that I've worked with, the team of administrators and the staff, really want to celebrate and elevate those students that are learning a second language or that are bilingual. That really, sets them above several of their peers by having that skill set.
It sure does.
And so one of the things we've talked a lot about is celebrating and honoring the languages, the cultures of all the students that come in. And in fact, we just had a book study Zoom this afternoon and talked about how students shouldn't have to sacrifice who they are to be part of our system. And so how does our system mold and morph around our students to embrace their differences and really celebrate and acknowledge that that's an advantage that you have, to be bilingual.
That's a great skill set to show a future employer.
Absolutely.
That's for sure, to have that type of skill, because let's face it, we are globally we are becoming smaller and smaller, and to have that information or have that skill rather at hand and be fluent in it is just they will be far and away ahead of perhaps other applicants for a job, for example. Yeah, you talked about celebrating. So cultural awareness, diversity is a big thing, but also to honor that. Elementary schools like to do that sort of thing. All schools like to do that. They figure that it's worth it to reward students to make sure that they realize that, hey, what I'm doing here, the effort I'm putting into it is being recognized by the people who are teaching that. So is that something that you ascribe to? Do you like that idea of celebration?
Absolutely, and I think it's more than Women's History Month or Black History Month. It's bigger than just that month. It's every day, all year round, that we're celebrating and honoring our students and our families. Kind of
at a more or less a level that they can appreciate because it's happening to them in real time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's interesting that you talk about that. So, what else is on your schedule for today? I always like to find out. So after you're done here being on television, what and give us an idea of the things you're doing now to get ready for your first year then in Addison at Army Trail School.
Yeah, I have a long to-do list. One of the things that I'm doing now, I've extended an opportunity for any staff member to come in and drop in and to get to know who they are as individuals. Just as we celebrate our students, it's important for us to celebrate and create an environment that is that our staff belongs to and feels that they're a part of. And part of that is getting to know who they are as individuals, about their families, about their aspirations and their goals. So that's kind of a big priority for me right now, is really getting to know staff. There's the logistical pieces of scheduling and newsletters and communication and things. But I really value building those relationships and building a sense of community, because I think all the other things tend to fall in place a little bit easier once you have that.
Yeah. Well, I think you'll find that the community, and as you mentioned, you met our village manager a little earlier before we had our visit here today, and I think you'll find that in Addison, and this has been in place for decades, we do not have these walled off institutions in the community where you're the school district and you're the park district and you're the city and the village, and we don't ever talk to each other. So you'll begin to see, you're noticing it even now,
I've already felt it.
You'll begin to see, that kind of get along sort of thing that's going to happen, and it is a whole of the community, just like we're talking about within your school community, family and kids together with their educators, the team, yourself, and their teachers. So
it's that old saying, it takes a village, right?
That's right. In fact, as I have mentioned to the others who've been on the interview here, probably in May, April or May, the District 4 School Board comes here to the Village Hall to have a regular Board of Education meeting, but that's the night where all the student councils are honored and recognized. So you'll be there with your student council. Francie Kapp will be there with her group and so on. And the students get up and they talk about all the wonderful things they did with their student council during the year. And you get to stand alongside them with their sponsors and take it all in, and it's held within the Village Hall because we have the space for it first.
That's wonderful. I did not know that.
Yeah, well, I'm happy I was able to share that with you because it's a great thing, because it does show a community approach to something like this. The parents obviously are coming, and the kids all show up and they're all dressed up and ready because they're going to give their little speech about what they did. And I think for yourself, the administrators, the educators, it's just you're going to be beaming with pride because these are your students, and especially in the first year that you're going to see what they're going to be able to do.
Yeah, what a great way to celebrate students. You know, we have such talented, dedicated young people that are making a difference, and so to highlight that is really exciting.
And you want to make sure that they are in a position that when they leave your building and head over to the junior high and then over to Addison Trail High School, that they're taking a lot of those really important foundational things that just can't be replaced, and the sooner they get them,
and
the better
leadership
it'll be.
skills and leadership experiences is wonderful.
Well, we've often talked about that too, that is also a great skill set for an employer to see. These are things you can't teach. You can't teach leadership. You can't teach these interpersonal skills on the job. You just kind of have to know them, and what better place to start than right here.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Christine, it was a real pleasure talking with you today. Good luck as you begin your career here in Addison at Army Trail Elementary School. And as I said, we'll probably see you during the course of the year, maybe giving a presentation at the Board of Education, and then certainly when they come for their final celebration then in May, you'll be here with your group, just like Francie and Brian will also, the other new principals here, and it'll be a lot of fun to see how far you've come. I'm going to stop in and say hi and say, now, how was it? Tell us about the first
I
year.
look forward to that.
Our guest today for this segment of Meet the New Principals of ASD4 has been Christine Warren, principal of Army Trail Elementary School. And if you're an Army Trail parent, here's your new principal. You can stop by and say hi to her. She may not be in the office, but she'll be around somewhere.
Absolutely.
Christine, good luck with you, and thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you.